think that gives you great credentials, Brian, in terms of the how you've come at the JFKA. So if you want to grab the screen and just ahead, if we are running a little bit late, so if you could try and confine it to 45 minutes with say 10 minutes of Q&A afterwards.
I'll give it my best shot.
Okay, all right then, off you go.
All right. Well, thanks for inviting us, and hopefully this will be something that that will make sense to you. I've always wondered, from a perspective of a tactical officer, what it took to put this thing together, the assassination of President Kennedy. So what I'm going to do is kind of reverse engineer the assassination from a tactical perspective, and see if we can figure out how they pulled this off. So before we go, we've got to talk about a couple definitions. One is, and I'm assuming you can see my screen, okay, Neil, right?
Yep.
Okay.
I can see your screen fine.
Okay. Tactical is basically using combat style methods to obtain a goal, and in this particular case, it was the goal to eliminate the chief of commander-in-chief, and by using integrity, audacity, and precision. And now that's from the Webster's dictionary, so I'm going to assume that that's about as close as you can get to the actual truth. Ambush is a sudden and unexpected attack from a concealed position. Now, keep in mind the word concealed is a key component of this operation. You want to be hidden when you attack anybody. I mean, you attack the president of the United States, you want to be in a position where they don't know where you're attacking from. So let's jump right into it. So this is Project Lancelot. It's a kill-only operation. There's no arrests going to be made. There's not going to be any, we're not out here to wound anybody. We're here to eliminate the commander-in-chief, and it's got to happen on Elm Street. There are redundant plans I believe there were redundant kill sites, but Dealey Plaza was the primary location. So any kind of operation like this, you're going to have a chain of command. You're going to have people that will do the work. That's what these little red guys are. These are the mechanics. These are the actual boots on the ground, if you will, and they answer to a specific person. So it's a cutout. These people, the actual operators or the mechanics, don't know who the people are pulling the strings for these people. So it's a chain of command that doesn't go up; it only goes down. And I suspect that these mechanics, whoever they might have been, they have been used before, and they can be trusted. They'll keep their mouth shut. They'll do their job. But people have always asked me when I do this presentation, well, what do you think these people are still alive? Well, if I came to you and I said, my plan is to use you to kill the president of the United States, do you think you're going to be live after 48 hours? Probably not. They're going to take you to someplace in a far off location and put you in a hole. They're not going to let you stick around and tell the story. So whoever these people are down here were basically cannon fodder. They knew they were probably going to, do the job and get paid well, but they didn't. That probably didn't happen. So any tactical operation, from if it's a police operation or mercenaries or whoever it might be, there's usually the same set of criteria. That there's logistical people that put it together, that make the transportation available, make let's find the safe houses. Those are the folks that do that. So there's the intelligence on the location, intelligence on the target, the action. The action itself is the shooting or whatever it might, kidnapping or whatever it might be, and then finally to evac. Get the heck out of there so that we don't leave any stones unturned. We'll get out of there. Nobody can find us. So once the motorcade and the location intel, once the motorcade route was finalized, and I believe that was sometime in late September, that once that's decided where it's going to happen, then we put our people in places that might be able to facilitate the action. Where's the best place? Where's the best cover? Where's the best concealment? How do we get out? how do you secure the building? How do we secure the location so that nobody, walks up on us? So that's what the location intel does. That's the guy who's in charge of surveying the area, tell you where it's going to be the best places to where you set up. Where's the rally point? Where's the primary firing positions? That sort of thing would be drawn out on a map somewhere on our board and say, okay, here A, B, and C. Here's our primary locations. I suspect, though, that when these were decided, when these locations were chosen, that the actual shooters probably went to Dealey Plaza and walked around, not only got distances, but they also wanted to see it from themselves from a firsthand position, so that they won't, be dropped in there and do their thing and go, well, I don't know where to go. They wanted to see it for themselves. So what we did in law enforcement, we'd do a drive-by of the house. We'd take a video camera, drive by the house that we're going to hit on a search warrant or whatever, so that we know what it looks like. So that's why they would have done that. So some of these pictures I'm going to show you have probably never been seen before, but I wanted to just give you that option to go, where did they get that picture? Well, this is from the movie JFK. They did Oliver Stone sent me some pictures that I could use. But anyway, shooting the president from the Patsy window, that's what I'm going to call it, the Texas School Book Depository. There's too many variables that could happen. There's an escape route. It would allow the target only one shooter. So we want to wait. We're not going to shoot him here, but we're just going to use this window for other purposes. Reconning the kill zone. What does it look like? How far away is it? What is it? A road? Is it a street? Is it a porch? What is it specifically? So that's why these guys would probably go down there and walk that, and they would triangulate. They would get distances. They would know the distances, the width of the road. They would know the distance from building, let's say that the Dowtex building to the kill zone. How far is all these stripes? They would get all that stuff, all the technical aspects of it already mapped out. They know exactly how far, how much time they have, how far the target's going to be. They'd have to know all that before the action took place. This is from a tactical perspective, this is where I would have put people. You can see there's 2, 4, 6, 7 active shooters. The green one in the book depository, that's my Patsy. He's probably not, I don't believe he fired a shot, or whoever it was up there probably fired a shot, may have been a blank. I don't know, but it was the idea to get people to look up there. But that was not an active window shooting at the president. I'm going to call him the target because that's how I refer to things. But there's people behind, there's people to the side, and people in the front. He cannot escape. It's going to happen. He will be killed on that Elm Street. That's why you have more than one shooter. If you had one shooter, what if he misses? What if his gun jams? These are the backups, the multiple shooters in multiple locations in a crossfire. How long is the target going to be on site? I mean, how is he going to get there? Well, it's real simple. You just use calculation of time, distance, speed, and time, and you figure out how far is it that kill zone is. How far is it from first exposure all the way to when he gets underneath the underpass? How far is it? It's 465 feet. How do I know that? Well, Google Earth says it is, and I've walked it and I measured it, so I'm going to go with 465. So the shooters, the planners, had to slow that car down to a point where it gives them the maximum amount of time that they can shoot at the target. And you can see in my calculations here, at 20 miles an hour, it's going to be on Elm Street for 16 seconds. That's not a long time. And the faster you go, the less time it's going to be exposed. They had to slow that car down. Then when I say they, I don't know who they are, but the driver is a Secret Service agent. They had to convince him or tell him, or I don't know if that was standard protocol with the Secret Service, but they had to slow that car down to 10 to 12 miles an hour. So that would give them plenty of time to shoot. And at 10 to 12 miles an hour, at 465 feet, it is that target's going to be exposed for about 30 seconds. That is more than enough time. You could throw a rock at him and shoot at him. That's in 30 seconds. So they had to slow that car down. So that's part of the logistics planning. They had to somehow slow him down. The target intel, obviously that's our target. We need to know where he's going to be. We need to know what car he's going to be in. As soon as President Kennedy's butt sat in that car in that position, that information was relayed to the planners. Okay, he's in the right rear seat. He's in the blue limousine with the top off. It's the number 2 car in the process, or in the motorcade. All that information was sent to them via radio, secure communications, so that the shooters knew exactly where their target was. They couldn't guess. They had to know exactly where he was going to be. So in real time, that information about where he's at, what he's doing, what's the progress of the motorcade? Are they 5 minutes ahead? Are they 5 minutes behind? Have they stopped? What are they doing as he changed positions? That information had to be relayed to the planners in real time. Now, that could have been somebody in the motorcade. It could have been somebody along the side watching him. Hey, he just passed my location. He's still in the right rear. They're about 5 minutes behind. I believe, from a tactical perspective, that information about where the target was relayed to them by somebody with a line of sight on the president who was riding in the motorcade. There's no other way they could be sure that that's where the target's going to be all the time. It has to be somebody close to the president so they know where he's at. I think that's just from a perspective. I think there was people in the motorcade that were suspect as far as helping pull this thing off. One of them is this car. This is the pilot car. Now, if you want to do a little research later on, find out who was in this car. I can tell you who's in it, but as far as their responsibilities, they're supposed to be clearing the road, making sure there's no traffic problems or pedestrian issues or whatever. But excuse me, this car is driven by, and I'm checking my notes here, the driver is Chief Lumpkin, the Assistant Chief of Police, George Lumpkin. In the car is two detectives, 2 homicide detectives, Turner and Schenkel. And then there's a Lieutenant Colonel George Whitmire, commander of the local Army Intel Reserve Unit. What the hell he's doing there, I couldn't tell you. He's not listed. Whitmire is not listed on the DPD case report. I've got that, and his name is not listed. And the other person who's very curious of why he was there, his name is Jack Putterbaugh. It's Putterbaugh. He's an employee. Are you ready? He's an employee of the Department of Agriculture. What possible reason would a Department of Agriculture guy be in the motorcade in the pilot car? One of those people, I think, was relaying the information to the planners and go, okay, we're coming around the corner, or we're 5 minutes ahead, or expect this here at this point. I believe this car is full of bad guys. I don't think the 2 detectives knew what's going on, but I think this guy, the Lumpkin and the Whitmire and this Putterbaugh guy are players. Of course, the information could have been provided by the car in front of the president's the president's limousine. Chief Curry, Bill Decker, and the 2 Secret Service agents. Any one of those folks could have had a radio and called out, okay, we're turning the corner onto Elm Street. You know, I think it was real simple to do it. Somebody was in close proximity to the president to provide that information. Well, when the president enters the kill zone, or the target enters the kill zone, there has to be somebody who's coordinating the shooting, and that's the fire control officer. This guy is in direct communications with the shooters via secure communications, and he's also in close proximity with an unobstructed view of the assassination site, so that he can coordinate everybody to shoot, hold, move, whatever. I think there was ample opportunities to have somebody in a fire control position on any of the tops of these buildings. they have unobstructed views of the motorcade. They have unobstructed view of the entire area. Okay, you've got somebody coming close to you. Take off, go to the south, go to the north, whatever. These are critical parts of this plan. Where are the observers? And I'm going to show you some pictures from what it looks like from the perspective of tops of some of these buildings to give you an idea how much of a panorama they can see. They can see basically 180 degrees all in front. I mean, all the action is going to take place in here. There's no reason to have to look back over here. So every position here looks into Dealey Plaza. This is from the top. This is a drone shot that I did that shows the book depository, the Dow Tex building, and the jail. From this position, you can see everywhere. I mean, you can see past the overpass. You can see all the way out to Stemmons Freeway. Any one of these three places would have been a perfect place to put a fire controller or a shooter. Both could have been there at the same time. One of the things that's critical is that once you get on top of this building, nobody's going to look up. I mean, I've been in law enforcement for 22 years. 9 times out of 10, suspects will run up a tree or hide in a higher place because nobody looks up. It takes too much energy to look up. So high ground is great. If you can put somebody up high, nobody's going to see them. Nobody's going to look up there. Nobody's going to be able to return fire in a high elevation. This is from the top of the courthouse, or from the county from the sheriff's office there, that building. Sorry, it's a little fuzzy, but it's from the top of the sheriff's office. I mean, what a commanding view. You can see more than you really need. You can see all the way over to Lee Bowers' place. You can see the highway. You can see the railroad. You see everything that you need to know about what's going on over in this road. That would be a great place to put somebody. This picture hasn't been seen before. I don't know if some of you may have seen it, but as far as I know, it's not been published anywhere. This is from inside the terminal annex, the post office. This is like the 4th or 5th floor. This is I don't know if this is the same office where Harry Holmes's was, but he said he told the Warren Commission he watched the motorcade from his office with a pair of binoculars. Well, this is kind of the same perspective. You can see a lot of the Dealey Plaza. You can see Elm Street. You can see anybody or anything coming and moving on that road. Another great spot is the little red courthouse. Jean Hill said that she was taken to this part of the courthouse, and it happened to be a judge's chamber, and I can't remember the name of the judge, but I've been inside that, and it's a pretty good view of Dealey Plaza, but it's a little low. You want to have a higher elevation. This is the clock tower part of the little red courthouse. It's a great spot. Nobody's going to see you up there anyway. You're in the shadows. Nobody's going to see you. Here's the view from that. What a great shot. You can see more than you really need. This is a great spot for maybe I don't think a shooter was here because the target's on the other side of the car, but a great place to have observational security. So as a law enforcement officer, let's talk about aiming points. The law enforcement officer, the way I was trained, the way I trained my guys, was center of mass. You shoot in the middle of the chest, you're going to hit an organ, you'll probably stop the action, but I'm sure you've all heard stories where people have been shot 15, 18, 20 times or whatever it might be, and they're still moving because obviously the bullet or the object didn't strike a major artery. But I can guarantee you, if you hit a person multiple times in that center of mass, they're going to slow down. I don't know if it'll kill them, but it'll slow down. But one way to ensure that you're going to kill your target is to go for a headshot. Obviously, that's what we're aiming at. We're going to aim at the smallest, even though it's the smallest part of the body. It's got the brain. If you can stop the brain, you've got a death right in front of you. It's an instantaneous death. If you can sever the brain stem from the cranium, you're good to go. And so these are the aiming points. If the target is coming straight at you, you shoot, this is a square you want to put around in. You'll sever the brain stem at 15, 1800 feet per second, it's over with in a second, blink of an eye. Profile, you shoot for the side of the head, somewhere in this area. And if it's direct profile, you shoot through the ear canal. You want to put one in his ear. That's what we always used to practice. Put one in his ear, and you drive that bullet right through that ear canal. It's done. Back of the head, anything low from the top down, it's good. It'll sever that brain stem, and he'll know. He won't even know what hit him. So, giving an example, what this looks like. This is an egg this is a 9mm slug going through an egg, and you look at the devastation and the cavity, the damage done to the skull. Can you imagine what it does to a human skull? I mean, it's done. You're dead. You will not survive that. And I always loved the testimony that our inspector got from one of the doctors, and said, well, if the president had survived his head wound, you think he would have been a functioning president? Well, you ask a stupid question, you're going to get a stupid answer. And you go, well, yeah, that part of the brain in the back right, the cerebellum kind of controls motor skills and his cognitive reasoning. I think he would have been able to function, but he probably wouldn't have been able to read or walk. How stupid can you be? If you hit a guy in the head with a bullet, it's done. There's nothing left to say. So the action, obviously, is to remove the commander-in-chief with as few shots as possible. Remember, we got to stick with the 3-shot scenario. That's what the shot caller, the fire control officer, he's got to make sure that only 3 volleys are fired. Now, that's not to say that some of these weapons were not silenced or suppressed. I believe they were. I believe multiple weapons were using silencers. The ones that were not silenced were the ones behind the president, so that people would say, oh yeah, I heard the shot coming over my head up high. That was a reason that those weapons would not have a silencer. I think half of the weapons that were used that day were silenced weapons. Remember if you haven't read Bill Greer, the driver of the car, he said that the bullets came into the car like a bunch of bees. And he specifically said they sounded like a bunch of bees. In other words, they were not, the crack of a rifle bullet. These were small, subsonic, high velocity rounds that were hitting the car, hitting the president. That's what he heard. But of course, they went on to something else like, what were you wearing that day? Nobody cares. And then the final part of the tactical operation is the evacuation. Get the heck out of there. And you probably want to have your guys go the opposite direction where everybody's going to be coming from. They're all going to hopefully surround the book depository. You want to go the opposite direction so that you're not caught up in that net that was probably going to be, took them 45 minutes, but still you don't want to be close to that. So let's talk about the 4 C's of a tactical operation. I learned this at sniper school, and I learned this at, on the job, basically. What are the 4 primary C's of a tactical operation? Well, the first one is the control of the high ground. High ground is better. The higher, the better. You have an expanded view. You have control over what's going on. Command to firepower is the second one, and I'll talk about these individually. Cover and concealment and communication. Those are the 4 components that are automatically involved in any operation of a tactical perspective. They have to be there. Without one, they don't work. Sun Tzu, the great Chinese general and strategist, wrote in The Art of War, says, he who occupies the high ground will have the advantage in all battles. The enemy will delay attacking from a lower position. Then he went on to say about concealment. Concealment is best achieved from the high ground. High ground is where you want to be. If you can be above, and when I say high ground, I'm talking about 10 feet and above. 10 feet above the roadway and above is high ground. So that's why the Secret Service, sitting on top of the White House, that's why they sit on the roof. They don't sit on the ground. They sit up on the roof. And I always like going there when I go to Washington. I always go down to the South Lawn and I wave to them because I know they're looking at us. But that's what they do. That's what they're supposed to do. So take the high ground. So here's a real world example on that. In 1961, I'm sorry, 1960, former Marine, United States Marine Charles Whitman climbed the bell tower at the University of Texas in Austin, and from an elevated position of 310 feet, killed 11 people and wounded 31 in less than 30 minutes. Now, how would you attack that? How would you get him? You know, how did I watched the video of how they actually finally got up there. They had to physically climb 310 feet on the staircase on the inside, get out on the pulpit, and walk around until they found him. He had a 360-degree, mile-and-a-half view from that tower. I mean, you might as well just hide underneath the manhole cover because you're going to get hit. I mean, there's no place to hide. Las Vegas, Nevada, 2017, same thing. 300 some feet up in the air. Stephen Paddock, this deranged guy, checked into his room on the 32nd floor, and 59 people were killed. Over 500 people were wounded or injured trying to escape. And this was his view. He had a target-rich environment. They had a rock concert in this park. It was only about 500 yards away. You're just asking to be killed if you're in this area. And the guy had nothing to do but just sit up there and pepper rounds 360 degrees or 180 degrees, just killing all these people. So shooting from within a structure is a key part of a covert type ambush. These guys, these are just military pictures of guys shooting from inside a building. If you know the Kennedy assassination with any kind of reference, you know that this guy, Howard Brennan, I had to put him Warren Commission witness. He's an actual Warren Commission liar. But Howard Brennan, he was sitting on the wall. There's the president's car. This is Houston Street, and they're making the turn on to Elm. Howard Brennan is right here. He's a construction worker. He's got a construction hard hat on. You can see him in the crowd. He's sitting up on that wall, and he's facing Houston Street. He's facing to the east. Well, as the motorcade turned and went down Elm Street, he's looking over his left shoulder. This is kind of hard to see, but he's looking over his left shoulder as the motorcade is under attack. But when the Warren Commission needed him to be the star witness, they placed him on the wall here. He was here. He was on this, on the other side of this. There's the concrete pillar. Then there's a little bit of this concrete section, but he was sitting facing this direction. Warren Commission put him here. Anyway, they showed him this picture, and he says, "Yeah, that's me. You took this picture in July of '64, and I'm testifying the next day. Here's where I was at." And he says he saw somebody in this window pointing a rifle out the window, and he marked it as such. He put an A, and he put the letter A, and he circled it. That's where I saw the guy with the rifle. And then they asked him, "Did you see anybody else hanging out, looking out the windows?" He said, "Yeah, I saw two African-American guys in the window here." And he made a B. He put the letter B as indicating that's where he saw these two gentlemen. Well, we all know that that's not right, because Tom Dillard took a picture of the assassination as it was taking place, and this is the sniper's nest, or the Patsy window, and here's Harold Norman and Bonnie Ray Williams. They're directly below. So Brennan's information is wrong, and the Warren Commission let that go. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. So here's what he testified. Here's what Brennan testified to. David Bellin asked him, "What kind of gun did you see in that window?" Brennan says it was some type of high-powered rifle. Well, first of all, let me stop you, Mr. Brennan. How do you know it was a high-powered rifle? It could have been a BB gun. How do you know? What's the difference between a high-powered rifle and a rifle? I don't know. He says, "I did not observe a scope." Bellin asks, "How much of the gun do you believe you saw?" Brennan says, I calculate 70 to 85%. Now, why would you? That's a strange use of words. What would you say? "Yeah, I saw it all the way up to the butt. I saw it up to the scope, 70 to 85% of the gun." Well, that gave me some some fun because I took 75% of that rifle. Well, first of all, here's what Brennan supposedly saw something like this. The barrel sticking out the window. The only reason you'd stick that rifle out the window is you want to be seen. Otherwise, you'd be back in the shadows, and you're firing through the open window. The only reason that rifle was pointed out that window was for somebody. It didn't matter if it was Brennan or Amos Ewens or Mary Smith or Joe Johnson or whatever. Somebody had to see somebody pointing that rifle out, whether it fired a bullet or not. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But Brennan says he saw 70 to 85% of the rifle. This is the Mannlicher Carcano, the 40.2 inch one that's in the evidence that the FBI says it was 40.2 inches overall length from butt to the tip of the barrel. 70% would be the blue line. That was, you see the scope. And then 85% is almost the entire length of the gun with the scope included. Brennan says, I didn't see a scope. Did he see a different gun or did he just not see it? I don't know. All right, the number 2 is the command of firepower. This is my team. That's me behind the old bunker buster. That's me. I was the first one in, first one out. But command of firepower. Everybody on our team had a Colt A2 9mm fully automatic rifle and a Sig Sauer 9mm 25 round capacity gun. We're going to overwhelm whoever's in that house or whatever we're hitting. Overwhelm them with audacity, speed, and firepower. That's what we did. Real world examples. This is the cache of weapons that Charles Whitman they found up on the top of the bell tower. He was ready for a war. And then this Stephen Paddock idiot, look at all these weapons this guy had. These aren't even all the pictures, but this is the weapon cache that this guy had. He was ready for a war. All right, number 3, cover. There's a difference between shooting from behind cover and the shooting from behind concealment. Cover will protect you from return fire, a brick wall, a car engine, whatever. But concealment, that only offers you benefit of stealth and doesn't protect you from return fire. So whenever these guys were setting up, they were in a position where they had at least some cover and a lot of concealment. Principles of War. It's a great book about early 17th century war tactics. Karl von Clausewitz, and it says take advantage of concealment. Everybody that wrote a book about war tactics always used concealment as a key component. So we want to make sure that we have plenty of concealment. They can't find us, and then we have cover in case they do shoot back. And the last one is communications. How do we communicate the information, live updates of where our target's at? How do we do that? Well, we have to have a secure radio frequencies. We're not going to be using the police radio because, everybody can hear it. Everybody's got a police radio, and from dispatch all the way down to the lowly patrolman way out in the middle of nowhere can hear it. And then civilians probably had scanners. So we don't want to have a frequency that anybody can access. We want to have a secure government issued or probably a military frequency. And we have to have a communication base. We have to have it hidden. Well, where is that? Well, this is inside the Fair Park radio communication civil defense compound out in Fair Park, which is about 5 miles away. And here's an article in the paper in 1960. The Dallas city approved the mobilization of a project to build this underground communication bunker at Fair Park underground. Notice that it's underground and nobody can get to it except people who have clearance. And they can communicate in case of national emergency. Federal, state, and local radio communications are all controlled by this location. This guy is a player. Jack Crichton was in charge. He's a colonel in the United States military. Was in charge of the 488th Intelligence Unit of the local Army Reserve, and half of his guys were in the motorcade. He was in charge of this as from the intelligence aspect in 1961. On the day of the assassination, Crichton, if you want to look up somebody that's pretty scary, look up Wikipedia. I know it's not the most accurate, but Wikipedia's got him as he's at a meeting at the Adolphus Hotel. Well, the Adolphus Hotel was probably the key control point. That's where all the planners probably met in a secure area. But anyway, Crichton's in charge of the radio communication intelligence part of it. So here's Fair Park, and here's Dealey Plaza. Well, the radio communication system was probably used at Fair Park. I'm just speculating. I don't know. But if I was going to have a secure military frequency, that's where I could go because that's what they have the equipment. Were there spotters in the kill zone? Absolutely, there were. There were probably at least two I know of. We have pictures of those guys. But I know there was spotters to signal the guys, hey, target's still up, continue to fire. And this is a photograph from Charles Bronson, not the actor, Charles Bronson, taken of the motorcade president's limousines on Elm Street, and it's approaching these two guys. There's the Newmans, Beverly Oliver, Gene Hill, Charles Brem, Beverly Oliver. These are my spotters right here. And I don't know about you, but I don't know how often a male in 1963 would carry an umbrella on a sunny day, but this guy was. And it was only probably for signaling. I mean, what stands out on a nice, bright, sunny day but a black umbrella or black something contrasting to the brightness? Black would be standing out. Here's my other spotter. I think these guys were spotting for two different teams. One team was watching this guy and another team was watching this guy. Here they are, the motorcade's already passed through. There's the Bill and Gail Newman. There's one of the officers, I can't remember what his name was, doesn't matter. Here they are sitting down. What's interesting, why I suspect these guys were players is because everybody is running except these two guys. They're not moving. They know what happened. They saw it. They were part of it. Nobody even looks at these guys like they would know something. You know, I wasn't the best, most smartest cop ever to come out of the police academy, but if I roll up on this scene and I see people running, I'm not going to chase you for your statement, but I'm going to walk up to these guys. Hey, while you're sitting down, tell me what you saw, what you heard, what you smelled, what you know. Nobody ever asked these. We don't know. 60 years later, we still don't know who these guys are. But I think they're players. They're looking like, what's going on? Okay, these guys are going away. We think this guy has the radio. In fact, there's a good picture of him holding something to his face, and it looks like an antenna. I think they were communicating. They were told what to do, when to leave, which way to go. Was the kill zone marked? Absolutely, it was marked. It was marked for, I don't know when it was marked, but there were certainly some indicators that there was something different with the roadway. This is from the FBI reenactment in 1963. I'm sorry, the Secret Service reenactment. And clearly that's not the president's car because it's already gone. But anyway, looking to the south across from where Zapruder stood, you can see at least three of the yellow lines, three of these yellow marks. These yellow marks are about, I don't know, 6 or 7 feet long, and they're on the top and the face of the curb. And they're about 40 feet apart. At least these are. I think these were signals, visual signals for people behind who could see the top of the curb, and people on this side, the shooters on this side of the street, who could see the face of the curb. In other words, these were used as designated kill zones. This is zone 1. This is zone 2. If he gets outside zone 2, then somebody else will be shooting, and that'll be their zone. That makes sense? I mean, that's what I'm thinking from a tactical standpoint. I don't think Lee Harvey Oswald did anything, but I don't think he was the one who went down there with his little paint bucket and a roller and painted these curb marks on the curb on the day of the assassination. Beverly Oliver said when she walked across the street when everybody else ran to the grassy knoll, she stepped on that stepped on one of those yellow marks, and she said, I looked later, saw yellow paint on my shoe. It was fresh paint. It was still drying. It was probably done at night when it didn't have time to dry. And so therefore it's going to be still wet until the sun gets on it for a couple hours. Well, it was a cloudy day. That paint was still wet. Somebody painted those marks for a reason. I think the reason was that the designated kill zone. This is a picture taken the next day from the same location where Zapruder was standing, and that yellow mark is clearly there. And you can see it in the Zapruder film. You can see it from about frame 310 to 318 or so. You can see Jackie climbing on the trunk, and you can see that yellow mark stands out like a sore thumb. During the reenactment, you can still see them. Here they are right here. There's one there. There's one there. We know they're there. And people have said, well, those weren't there in 1961. Well, I don't have any pictures of that, but I'll take your word for it. Here's another picture from the Dallas Police Crime Lab. Good training. You don't take a picture of yourself in the crime scene. Anyway, here's one of the marks. Here's another mark. Here's another mark. We know they're there. Here's the Zapruder film. 306, frame 306, there's one of them, and 350, there's another one. Definitely designated kill zones. And there's two more down here. Cops would have looked at that and go, what the heck is that for? For those of you that drive, and I'm assuming everybody in this conference is able to drive a car, even though we drive on the wrong side of the street. But anyway, yellow marks on a curb in America means there's no parking, but it's usually a lengthy stripe that says, okay, you can't park from here to here. Well, what's the purpose of having one that's about 6 or 7 feet long and there's another one down here? Does that mean you can't park here and you can't park here? I don't know what they were for. I've been trying for years to get to the city to see if they had some guy go out there for the motorcade route to put stripes on the curb. It probably didn't happen that way. All right, high ground firing positions. I'm going to kind of go through this real quick. Here's where I would have put the people. First one is obviously from the Patsy window. We want to have somebody look up and see a gun in that window like that. I've always been inquisitive about this. If this is the sniper's nest of what it looked like when the Dallas police crime scene search team after they moved the boxes, but if these boxes were there, did Oswald or whoever use this as a gun rest? If so, where's the boxes to duplicate it? If you're going to reenact something, use it as it was when you took the picture originally. Does that make sense? You want to make it look the same. Well, Oswald didn't have a tripod, and he had these boxes in front of him like this. I don't know what this is supposed to represent, but it doesn't make any sense to me. It wouldn't be admitted in court. The west wing, the west end of the book depository, this is the view you would have had as the motorcade proceeded on down Elm Street. Here's from the high floor of the Dow Tex building. Fire escape is going to add extra concealment. Remember, people aren't going to turn around and look up, and they're probably not going to turn around. But if you can fire from inside the shadows of these windows, you're golden. This picture probably hasn't been seen before. I got this from Gary Shaw. This was taken in 1967 by a member of Jim Garrison's investigative team. They came to Dallas and took some pictures. Why they went up in the Dow Tex building, I'll leave that up to your interpretation. But there's the book depository. This is the Dow Tex. This is what it would look like if you had a rifle sticking out of that window. I mean, the target is moving in a straight line, right, for at least, maybe 100 feet. That's a great time to shoot. Here's a better perspective. Here's the book depository. You're inside the Dow Tex building. The fire escape's been removed. It's no longer in the way here. The next place I'd put is the low floor of the Dow Tex building. You're shooting right down the same line as the target's going. I mean, I could teach somebody to do that that's never picked up a rifle. I could teach you to do that in 5 bullets. You're going to hit the target. It's the target's moving in the same line as your gun. You don't have to swing it left to right or up or down. You're in the same line as the target. Next one is the top of the jail. That's a great spot. Look at the view you had. Obviously, the cars are going the wrong way, but this was I think this was 1960 before they changed the traffic pattern. This probably hasn't been seen before. This is from the top. This picture was taken from the top. Again, this is that Jim Garrison's investigator, taken from the top of the courthouse onto the top of the jail. So all this area is open. There's the book depository. All this area could be, you know, a shooter could stand here and a spotter could stand over here. Low ground. There's 4 positions on the low that would be ideal for an ambush. To the right, was there a shooter on the no? Yeah, there are probably a couple of them over there. The target is the blue box here. Good concealment. You've got a fence for cover, but it's not great cover. If they fire back, wood will not stop a bullet. Gene Hill said that somebody was shooting from the corner of the fence. Bill Newman and Gail Newman, immediately after the assassination, were taken to a local television station and basically gave testimonial on television. The bullet hit him in the head, and it came right over our heads. Here's the Newmans here. The bullet came right over our head. Bill Newman even says, and his quote is, "It came from the garden behind us." Well, behind us is over here, not up here where the book depository is. Zapruder himself said, yeah, the bullet hit him in the right side of the head. And he says, I thought the shot was coming from behind me because that's where the cops went. He says, I was probably in the line of fire. They didn't take that as important information. And, well, you know, you were probably mistaken. Well, he wasn't mistaken. It's his first impression. He doesn't have time to make up a story. Charles Brem, who was in Normandy, the invasion of Europe by the Allied forces, he certainly knew, and I've talked to him many, many times before he passed away. He said, I was standing in the line of fire. He said, that bullet, somebody was shooting from across the street right in front of me. Well, that's pretty important information. He didn't say anything about that. All the times I interviewed Charles Brem, he never said anything about the book depository, never said anything about any of the buildings around him or to the right of him. He said, all I can tell you is what it came from across the street. So where we're talking about is here's behind the picket fence. Elm Street is out of view on this side. Here's where a shooter probably was. This is the view that shooter might have had, standing on a car bumper or something up above the fence. There's your firing zone right there. So we got a shooter in that box. We've already known that the shot hit him in the head and his body flew back to the left. There's the Mormon photograph. That shooter is probably right in here somewhere. And this would have been what they may have seen. Sometime. That's just part of from the JFK movie. Somebody goes, hey, you got a picture of the shooter. No, that's not the shooter. That's from a movie. Sam Hall. They go, hey, Edward solved it. We found a shooter. This is a picture from Rush to Judgment, where Mark Lane interviewed Sam Hall, and he said when the shots were fired and after it was over with, he says we ran to this area. That's the same area what we're talking about. J.C. Price was sitting on top of the Terminal Annex, the post office, and he said he saw somebody running away from the fence from that area. Lee Bowers, this is, some of you may have never seen this before. I got access to the railroad tower a couple years ago, and for about 30 seconds took as many pictures as I could. This is Lee Bowers' view from the top of the tower, and you can see that entire length of that fence. Well, at the time of the assassination, there were cars in here all jumbled around and parked in anywhere they wanted. They didn't have lanes like they did today, like they do today. But anyway, Lee Bowers says he saw 2 men standing in this area, close to where Gene Hill, the Newmans, Charles Brem, all those people have already said they corroborated what each other have been talking about. So the next one is a little bit further down the fence. The Beverly Oliver says that she said that she looked up and she saw somebody firing from that 3-trunk tree on the grassy knoll. The east end of the fence is down out of the picture to the right. This is almost in the middle of that fence. Ed Hoffman, my dear friend Ed Hoffman, said the man I saw was wearing a dark suit and a dark hat, and he was aiming a rifle over the fence, and I saw a puff of smoke, and I thought it was from his cigarette. When I turned, I could see the rifle. Ed was talking about this area right in here, not the west end of the fence, but Ed was talking about down further. So now we've got people saying that there was a shooter further down the fence. Well, what does that mean? Well, again, this is not the shooter. This is me for the cover of our book. But that's where Ed said the shooter was. And no, I was only 9 years old. It wasn't me. So, all right. So we're talking about a shooter in this area behind the fence and down here. Well, that's certainly plausible. Why not have backup to a backup? So if we got, is it possible there were two shooters on the fence line? Absolutely. Absolutely. The more you have, the better your chances of success. Malcolm Kilduff, the assistant press secretary, tells the press at the Parkland Hospital, bullet hit him right in the head. Well, if the shooter was from behind, wouldn't you say the bullet hit him in the back of the head? No, I think he's talking about the right side of the head. And finally, the knoll on the south, this is your view you would have had. Not a great spot. I mean, it's good concealment, but it's not good cover. And as the car, I think I have a picture of it, the car coming down the street, as the car gets more of an angle, your target is out of view. I mean, Jackie and Governor and Mrs. Connolly will be blocking your view. So if you're going to shoot from this position, you want to make sure it's in the car as the target is in here, so it's a straight line shot. But now you got to shoot over the windshield. I think this was a bad place. I think this was a good observational place, a good fire control location. But as far as a shooter, I would put it well low on the primary. I'd put it like second to backup, maybe. And then finally, I think one of the best ones in front of the car were from the top of the bridge. And I know people are going to say, well, people on the bridge would have seen him. Well, not necessarily. If your witnesses are all over here, they're not paying attention to what's going on down here. And if you're hidden, and David Knight's going to cover this in his presentation, David and I went to Dallas last year, and we specifically went to that location to see if I stood here where Holland and all those witnesses were, can I see anybody over here? Well, the bridge, the concrete kind of is in a bowl shape, and you won't necessarily see anybody. But if you did, well, the person could say, I'm part of security. Okay, how would they not know that guy is part of the security team? So from this is the book depository. Sorry, I'll go back one. The book depository. Come on, get back. This from the book depository. This is the view from a drone shot. The car moves in a straight line for about 110 feet. And it's going right to here. If I was a shooter, this is where I'd put my best shooter, right up in here, because the target's coming right at you. You almost can't miss. I mean, you're certainly going to hit something. There's your kill zone for that shot. You're standing on the bridge, or you're in a kneeling position. You're shooting from the shooters from behind have a straight line shot, and you have a straight line shot. I think this is the kill shot right here. It's from the bridge. Well, the final analysis is, I think, from my perspective, from a tactical law enforcement bad guy position, if I was going to set this up, this was a military-based operation with mechanics, shooters who knew how to do their job. These were not first time, they weren't putting the rookie guys in there. These people have done this before. These were skilled hunters. These were mercenary types who would do whatever they get, whatever you were telling them to do. They position people in behind, to the side, and to the front. There's no escape. This was a classic ambush situation where there's no place for you to go. The car has to stay on the street, and it's going to get, even if it stops, you're dead. You're dead. If you back up, you're still dead. You can't. There's no place to go. This was the optimum location. That X on the Elm Street is that's your kill shot. So I know I went through this pretty dang fast. It's 54 minutes, and I got any questions you might have, I'll be glad to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, that's great. Any questions? Yeah, Bart has got a question.
I've got a question about the so-called sniper's nest that you showed earlier, and the pipes that are on the wall. I asked a different researcher earlier this morning as well.
Right.
If you, I don't know if you can go back to that slide, but basically for a right-handed shooter, I have been a shooter myself in my military days, and I find it absolutely near impossible to take a shot from that window with these pipes in the way, because they basically force you to go at an angle that isn't really natural. I think it's a shot before that. That's a shot that showed. Yeah, well, you can see the pipe probably to the left of the window, but
yeah,
that's it. And it's basically also an inch or two away from the wall as well.
Right.
It really makes your shot more difficult to take as such.
Right.
I've got a question.
It forces, this pipe forces you to point the rifle in this direction, but if you use this box as a tripod or as a gun rest, you're still gonna, this is still gonna be in the way.
Yeah.
And the picture I had of the FBI, Cortland Cunningham, the firearms expert, I'm making the firearms expert, yeah, and they didn't even consider, here it is, they didn't even consider that pipe being an obstruction or a problem. And that's why they probably moved all the boxes out of the way, no gun rest box here, and put a little tripod down and put the gun out the window. I mean, hell, I could have made that shot with not even looking. But you're right, Bart, that this pipe is going to be a problem.
Yeah, it's a massive problem.
Yeah.
That's just my point. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions? Oh, yes, Mike.
Deputy Sheriff named Seymour Weitzman was on duty at Dealey Plaza that day, and when the shots rang out, he ran towards the grassy knoll and encountered the man holding up some sort of ID saying, "It's okay, I'm the Secret Service."
Right.
There were no Secret Service men in the Dealey Plaza.
Right.
And he didn't think until later this might have been one of the shooters. Is that possible? This was on the top of the grassy knoll, right around the corner of the fence, where it'd be easy to not climb over, but come around the end of that parking fence. You said something about how that would be one of their lines of escape, to go down quickly and blend into the crowd.
I think part of that was if I was a shooter behind that fence, let me go to that picture. If I was a shooter behind that fence, I'm going to have my security guy or my spotter with me, and I'm going to toss the rifle to him, and I'm going to put the gun in a car trunk or whatever. But yeah, Joe and also Joe Marshall Smith, the Dallas police uniform officer who was stationed at Elm in Houston, immediately ran behind the picket fence and encountered a man. He pulled his gun on the guy, and that's what Ed Hoffman saw. He pulled the gun on a guy, and who was in a suit and a hat. Of course, everybody wore hats back in the 60s. All the men wore hats just about. But he says, I pulled my gun out on this guy, and he showed me, he reached in his pocket or his coat and showed me he was Secret Service. He says, at the time I was figuring, what am I going to, why am I pulling my gun? But I think that was a shooter. I absolutely, no doubt in my mind that guy was a shooter, or a spotter. He might have been the security guy, and the shooter might be long gone, might be hiding in the trunk of the car. But yes, two officers encountered somebody behind the fence immediately after that.
The Select Committee on Assassination somehow concluded that there was a shot from the grassy knoll behind the fence, but that somehow they managed to miss. Do you think that would be remotely possible if that kind of system?
You kind of broke up there. I didn't hear all of
the question, Brian, was the HSCA concluded that there was a shot from
Oh,
behind
yeah.
the picket fence, but however, it missed. Is that at all plausible that you could miss from that range?
You know, I could have, I'm gonna talk about, just speak from practical experience. If I was that bad and I missed a shot at 40 yards, I shouldn't even be I shouldn't even be holding the rifle, but it's possible. Why position somebody there that's not going to hit the target? You're as close as you're going to get. 40 yards is closer than any of the other shooters. I could have been a distraction. Why would you want to call people's attention to that? That's where that's your hide. That's for two teams of shooters. Why would you want to call it a distraction? I think that was an actual shot. I think that shot hit him in the side of the head instantaneously with one from behind. And I don't want to get into the sequence of shots because I don't know. It doesn't really matter because the autopsy pictures don't tell us a damn thing. But I think as far as somebody shooting from that end and missing, I find that unlikely. Remember, these are professional killers. These people are probably military trained. They can hit when I practiced, I was on the sniper team. I didn't show you that picture, but I was on the sniper team for 8 years on my police department. And we wouldn't shoot paper targets because that's too easy to hit. We would shoot Tootsie Pops at about 50 to 100 yards. And that way, if you aim small and miss small, you're going to be able to hit something really big. Let me show you that real picture quickly. But as far as that's me on the right or on the left, the picture, shooting a 308 Remington high caliber weapon with a bipod and a 4x. What did I have? I had a 3.5 by 44 scope. We used Hornady Gold Match 150 grain full metal jacket hollow point bullets. I can guarantee you at 40 yards, I won't need a scope, but I'm going to hit my target. Guarantee you. But as far as missing, I don't know how they could speculate that a bullet missed when they don't have the bullet. I don't know how they do that. But yeah, I think there was two teams of shooters behind the knoll.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Another question there from you, Matt?
Yeah, hi, Brian. Would you mind going back to the Bill Newman slide where he's being interviewed on TV?
Which one, Phil?
The Bill Newman slide where he's being interviewed on TV.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it looks like it's reversed. I think it is on the where I grabbed it from. It is reversed, and he was pointing to the other temple.
Yeah, that was my point.
Yeah, he should be pointing
to Malcolm killed up. But I don't think just because Malcolm killed up is pointing to the right side of his head that you put too much store by that, because if you were just making a press conference, you just automatically point to your head. I don't think you can necessarily say that where his
Right.
finger is where the bullet hit.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
Bill Newman.
But if you listen and watch the whole interview, Newman, Newman says it was right behind us on the garden, and then the reporter, I can't remember his name, he says, "You mean at the book depository?" I don't know where he got that information so quickly, but Bill Newman reiterated and said, "No, it was behind us. We were in the line of fire. That's why we threw ourselves down on the ground." But yeah, I think this picture is reversed because Newman was sitting on the left side or on the right side of the interviewer. So I think wherever I got this, they flipped it, so it's not in the right place. But I think he does point to the right temple when he hits it, because the Newmans could only see the right side of the president's head anyway, because of where they were. You know, the ironic part of that whole Newman thing, I've interviewed them multiple times. They're good friends of ours. We correspond with them quite frequently. And of all the people in the assassination that were there were 12 to 15 feet from the car, and they saw the devastation of the headshots. They were never called to testify. Now, is there a reason for that? Yeah, there's a reason for that, because they would have said to the Warren Commission, "Yeah, we were standing in a line of fire. The shot came from right behind us." They're not going to let that happen. We'll take your deposition and we'll look at your affidavit and we'll look at it and we won't consider it. But if anybody was going to be called to the Warren Commission, these would have been the first people. Marina Oswald had no information about the assassination. She was in Irving. This guy was there. They didn't call him.
Okay.
Yeah, one other observation, if you would mind pulling up the slide with, where you're examining the length of the rifle that Howard Brennan could see from.
I'm sorry, the length of the what?
Yeah, if you could put up the slide with the different lengths of the rifle, the color
Oh,
coding,
sure.
color
Sure.
coding. Yeah.
I wish I could have interviewed Howard Brennan. I would have really made him look stupid.
Yeah, Howard Brennan said that he could see, what was it, 70 to 85%, or
Yeah.
75%. Shouldn't your arrows begin from the barrel, not from the stock?
Okay, well, let's do that. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That would be, that's a good point. Okay, so you're gonna see,
In which case, the very shortest one, the blue line, may well stop short of the scope.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, good point. I'll change that. But do you see, but do you see where I'm going with it? The way he phrased it, 70 to 85%, that's strange to me. Like he was rehearsed, or like he was told, okay, you're from that position, you're only going to see this portion of the car. Ask him, how much of the rifle did you see? Well, I saw from the tip of the barrel to about halfway to where the trigger is. And that would have been more reasonable as far as that goes. But yes, I will change that. That's a good point. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Something else I was going to point out there. If to put 75 to 80%, surely you need to know how long the rifle is
To start with,
to start with.
whether it's 36 inches or 40. Yeah.
Otherwise,
Right. Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had a question
Okay.
regarding, which I hadn't considered before, but was the locating the target. In previous motorcades with the bubble down, did Kennedy sit back right all the time?
Sometimes he did, sometimes he stood up. There's photographs of him in Fort Worth. There was photographs of him at Carswell Air Force Base when he got it. Yeah, he was sitting in the right rear, but it was a different car. In Fort Worth, they didn't have the presidential limousine. They had a Lincoln Continental convertible, and he was sitting on the right side of that, right rear of that. But it seemed to be that was his preference, the right rear. You can go on the internet and type in JFK motorcades, and you'll see him. He was riding with the president of India. He was riding with the Queen of England, and every time he was in the car, he seemed to be that was his place. That was the presidential side, I guess.
Right, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're going to have to close it there, Brian, because
Okay.
we're
Right.
overrunning. We've missed our tea break, and well, we haven't.
Now, I gotta ask you, Neil. You really drink tea, or is that just an excuse?
Well, we weren't drinking tea at lunchtime at the pub, I can assure you.
Well, I'm gonna have a beer, so that's.
I think you deserve it, Brian. No, that's brilliant. Can I just thank you on behalf of everybody? That was a very good presentation.
Thank you for inviting us. I appreciate it.
And the photos, a lot of those fantastic photos, are they on your website?
They are.
Okay.
They are.
We'll direct people there. Okay, brilliant. Well, thanks very
Yeah.
much, Brian. All the
Okay.
best.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Make a suggestion, Neil, shall we, rather than taking a 10-minute break and seeing outside and challenges, go outside, go quick break?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just bring it in.
And then we can continue for the next.
Yeah, that makes sense.